Hi, I'm Chuck McMinn. Thanks for coming to Vineyard 29 today. I'm sorry I can't be here personally to greet you. Many of you probably are coming at a time when things are pretty quiet here and you wonder what we do for a living. So I thought I'd give you a short virtual tour of what it's like to make wine at Vineyard 29. So enjoy the tour and enjoy the wines. Thanks for coming. A lot of people have the impression that winemaking is magic or some sort of a black art. And there are certainly things that the winemaker can't control. We can't control the weather. We can't control the particular soil that a vine is planted in and how the vine reacts to that. But just because some of those aspects are unmeasurable doesn't mean that the winemaking process is magic. It just means that there are certain things that are out of your control that, in my view, makes it even more important that all those other elements where things could go well or things could go poorly must be carefully monitored so that you can produce and reproduce the same quality year after year. It was the case with Vineyard 29 when we got started that I wanted to understand first what technology might be able to do for the business, but then also to apply it appropriately, not in the manipulation of the wine, but around the ability to control the process. And that dates back to some very early work that I did at Intel. And at the time, Andy Grove had a saying that if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. So really the first place that measurement starts for Vineyard 29 is in the vineyards. We try to take measurements not only of the wind speed and wind direction and humidity and temperature that we can get from our weather stations, but we also take moisture readings. We have about a dozen probes that measure the moisture content from the surface in the vineyards down to 6 feet into the ground. And we use that information to help us predict when we should water and how much we should water in order to keep the vines as healthy as we can. We've even gone beyond that just recently and are actually putting instrumentation on some of the actual vines themselves to measure how the water or the sap in the vines moves up and down the vine between day and night.
In a way, to make good wine, we need to stress a little bit the vines, but not stress them too much, to arrive to a certain balance there. And this technology is trying to make us understand when exactly a vine can say, okay, I'm stressed now.
We start treating our grapes gently at the point of harvest. Most people will harvest grapes into a half-ton bin, a bin that's about 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet. And we choose not to do that. We harvest our grapes into small 40-pound lug boxes so that each cluster can be delivered to the crush pad without any damage on the way. Once the grapes arrive at the crush pad, we really try to treat them very differently than most wineries in the valley. The whole idea is to minimize the amount of abuse that we might deliver to individual berries. And a lot of that has to do with not using pumps wherever we can. When the grapes arrive on our crush pad, they're lifted up by forklift, deposited on a cluster sorting table where we go through and look for anything that's not supposed to be there. And that's pretty much standard in the industry. But after that, typically what would happen is the clusters would be destemmed, the grapes would immediately be crushed, and the slurry, the resultant slurry, would be pumped around the facility. We don't do that. We destem the grapes, and then we have a second sorting table that's about 20 feet long that we staff with a dozen people to pick out individual berries that are not perfect berries for a wine. And then at the end of that table, the grapes drop into a small transfer tank that we allow to fill up with whole, uncrushed berries. And then we lift that and transport that tank above any of the main fermentation tanks. and allow the berries to drop into the main fermentation tanks by gravity.
What we're doing again for red grapes is really removing the stem, removing all the green parts, and having at the end just little piece of caviar, in a tank. So just perfect little berries falling down into a fermenter to start the fermentation.